Happy Friday morning. It is March 6th, and spring is certainly in the air. Weather's good. Golf is on TV. Was actually out at Bay Hill for the Arnold Palmer Invitational opening day yesterday, and it just makes me want to be on the golf course. Weather is absolutely perfect here in Florida. Got a little warm in the afternoon, but yeah, man, it's that time. So when we start feeling that time, we start feeling the market start to crank, and there is an undercurrent right now that is certainly with us. So I want to spend just a minute this morning talking about the market, and then I'm going to give you a tactical conversation you can have when you're representing buyers to help grease the skids with the listing agent so that you can write a better offer. You can understand where the seller's mind is at, right? And you can help to present something that is just not going to be dismissed or come across as offensive. So we want to make sure we're bridging those gaps. And in this market, that's certainly going to be a skill that we need to refine, be intentional about, and learn to really kind of make our own. We got to put our own personality on it, but it will be something that'll be super helpful for you in time. All right. So I want to look at this chart, and it shows active U.S. housing inventory for sale according to Realtor.com. And this shows it laid out over the course of many, many years, right? So we can see how the market of inventory, and this is kind of the conversation point we keep hearing from everybody in the media, is that inventory is at an all-time high, buyer interest is at an all-time low. And so they're saying that we're in this deficit because of the disparity between those two pieces and those two trigger points. Before we really talk about that, I want to just kind of look at this in context so that we're seeing this. So if we go back the farthest back they've got is 2017. It looks like in December of that year, you were at like 1.12 million active housing inventories for sale. 2018 was a little higher, closer to 1.2. 2019 came down a little bit. And so we really start seeing from 2019 to 2020, and we're just looking at the December chart here. In 2019 was going into COVID, and then this massive drop off in inventory. Now, why was that? Was it buyer demand in 2020 that increased so dramatically that our inventory went down, time on market was down? Because then we go to a period where we've got, just over 600,000, half of what we had in 2018 inventory wise. Now, remember these times. And we remember the freak out moment there of like, there's no inventory, builders must build, and we went into this period of growth where there was a lot of new housing starts starting to happen, but costs were up. So how do we impact that? Down to 21, got worse. 450,000 homes actively listed in December of 2021. 2022, we started to see this increase, and we started to see this tapering off between 22, 23. In 23, and then same thing back into 2024. So we can see this in a different chart where you can see this this up, down, this little trend line, and then this massive drop off. It's helpful to see it in this context too, because then you can see the climb back to what was actually more normalcy. We're told that this is abnormal. What is not abnormal is this kind of inventory. What is abnormal is what they are insinuating is buyers that are in the market. Okay. And so we're not showing that side by side right now with the buyers, but I just want you to see that although they are indicating there is a lot of inventory, the question is, in your marketplace, how fast is that inventory getting swooped up? In the neighborhood you're working in, how fast is that inventory getting swooped up? And so I'm challenging you. We've talked about this on a couple episodes, challenging you when you are representing a seller to not be so focused on macro market, but focus on what is going on in your neighborhood, what is going on in your community, what is going on in your city. And then you can get more broad, because when we are listing something on the market, we're taking a lot of pieces of information that we have, and we're trying to apply it to make our best guess at one, where we need to be pricing wise, how long this is going to take, if we're not getting success, what is the issue, right? All of those are the factors that we're constantly trying to better understand. And so it's important for us to kind of see from this side, because if you were saying there's 10 homes on in this neighborhood, that's a lot of inventory, and maybe it is, but you have 4 homes selling a month in there, you get 2.5 months of inventory. That is not an overwhelming market. That's actually a seller's market. Okay. And so we've got to be able to dial this down. And so I'll say that one more time for anybody who doesn't understand that. How many homes are available? How many are selling per month on average? So I would look over a 6-month period or a year period. On average, how many sell? Now, Here's what that is. That is a static representation of inventory. That doesn't account for future seasonality, right? So in March, April, May, June, you might be seeing 5 or 6 homes on average selling per month. And so we struggle to look at these, the way in which we assess the housing market, in my opinion, properly, because it's all based on historical context. It is not based on anything that is going to happen. Same thing with appraisals. An appraisal is done in retrospect. It's only based on historical data, right? So in a fast moving market, you're always going to have a upward moving market. Like in this period here, 2020, 2021, there's always a challenge with an appraisal meeting number because they're based on the sales here, right? And so that was something we just continually saw. So going back to this, where do we stand in this market now? And I think it's something we've got to do a better job really understanding. So this is on Resi Club. Feel free, you can go find them. These charts are on X. You can go to their website. They've got a great section. Do some very good visual charts, which I'm love seeing because it helps put a visualness to that. All right, here's what I want to do here on Friday. I want to jump into something that it's hard to coach on, and we're going to do our best to do it, because when we are representing buyers and we are talking to listing agents and we are trying to understand, hey, your home's been sitting on the market for 60 days, 70 days. I've got a buyer who really likes the house. They're a really good fit for this house, but maybe without saying it, I feel like you're dramatically overpriced. I know why you're not selling. You're overpriced. Now, if they simply drop price, now you're going to be competing with other buyers in the market, right? We know that. We know that when price goes to where it needs to be, the market responds rather quickly in the spring market like we are right now, or in a fast-moving market. So in times, the opportunity is there because something's overpriced. I can get an opportunity at it. And I think we've got to change our mindset in that way of shifting, because we'll have buyers that'll say, I don't want to see it's overpriced. That may be the opportunity. They may be getting bad advice. They may be hungry to sell. They may be ready to go. They just may have a lot of people saying, I'm going to sit on my hands and wait for them to come down in price. The problem with that is now you compete. When they get to the right price, you compete. So I want to give you a 5 tactical conversations or questions and a framework for how you can approach listing agents without throwing too much shade at them, without really thinking you're trying to just work a deal and get the lowest price you possibly can. You're trying to work a deal out for your buyer and their seller. Okay. And so we've got to approach it that way. We're going to be high-level negotiators in this sense, because what we want to be able to do is gain information. We want to gain information so that we can use it to help represent our buyers as best as we possibly can. It's not about being best friends with the listing agent. It's not only about being super easy to work with. It's about putting a deal together and representing our buyers well. The other things are great. If you like the other person, that's great. But I've heard it too many times, like, where an agent just approaches and tries to be likable, and that's going to be the thing that gets their deal done. It's going to fall short, right? You can't do that consistently process-wise, but what you can do is negotiate in a way, and the negotiation starts the moment you talk to that person. And I think we got to take a step back and understand that the moment we talk to that person the first time, that negotiation starts. So we're going to be talking about, I set up the showing. I want to be on time. I want to leave the house well. I want to give them some level of feedback. Now, if my feedback says house is great, buyers love it, price is good, how, are we setting the stage for a good negotiation? I don't think we are. What if we just say, okay, price too high? And I get feedback all the time. It's like, okay, I mean, you can certainly think price is too high. I wouldn't expect you, if you were going to write me an offer, to tell me the price is perfect, unless you're coming in with a killer offer, So there's a great line from FBI hostage negotiator Chris Voss. If you've read his book, Never Split the Difference, he says the best negotiators aren't the ones who push harder. They're the ones who get the other side to reveal information. And honestly, that's exactly what great real estate agents do before writing an offer. Because the goal is not to get the listing agent to tell you a number. The goal is to learn something useful. What is the pivot point for this buyer? What is going to make them want to move? Most agents call the listing agent and they ask the worst possible questions. How low will your sellers go? It immediately shuts down the conversation. Why? Because the other agent is thinking, why would I negotiate against my own seller? So instead, we need a better approach. So let me give you a few things here. Number one, we're going to ask about the temperature, not the number. So instead of asking about price, how are the sellers feeling? So an example, we're going to say, how would the sellers feel? How are the sellers feeling about the activity so far? What has been their reaction to the feedback? What kind of feedback have you received? How would you describe where they are right now, just motivation wise? We're trying to understand their motivation because their motivation matters more than the list price. I can tell you without asking, I don't have to ask this to know this, the listing agent wants to sell the house. Now, there is a unique agent out there, and I run into them every once in a while, that is very principled. They take everything very personally, and they're going to be a big wall between you and bringing getting a fair shake with the seller. And sometimes I believe that's because they're uneducated in this regard, and they feel like the price they told the seller they have to make good on. Maybe they do. Maybe they're incentivized in that way. Maybe their listing agreement structured that way. I don't know. Sometimes you hit a wall. So every one of these cases, we've got to be the ones that are just seeking information. I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job. So number two, use observations to start the conversation. So instead of interrogating, make an observation. So it seems like you've had activity, but maybe just not found the right buyer yet. It seems like you're getting a lot of activity over there. Any offers? It feels like the sellers may be getting closer to where they need to be. So I didn't say you were priced too high. I said maybe it feels like the sellers are getting a little closer price-wise to where they need to be. And then they're going to be able to respond to your observation. They may confirm it. They may correct it. Either way, the goal is that we're getting them talking, so we're looking for information that'll help us. Number three, ask questions that make them think out loud. Yes or no questions shut down the conversation. Now, this is true in pretty much every conversation we have. Yes and no questions are almost reserved for legal depositions, right? I want to get someone on the record saying absolutely not or absolutely yes. In a negotiation, we are trying to get context. We're trying to get details. So here's an example of how you would open up a conversation. What do you think would make an offer feel serious to them? How do you think they'll react to an offer in this range? What would give someone the best chance of getting some traction with an offer? What is it they're really looking for? Now, the listing agent often may start explaining, or they may put up another wall. Cool. If they explain anything, if they beat around the bush long enough, they might just give you one piece of information you need. Number four, acknowledge awkwardness. In Chris Voss's book, he talks about just labeling things. Because once you say it, it makes it not awkward. So something like this: I know you've got to protect your sellers, and I respect that. I know you're looking out for their best interests, trying to get the highest possible price you can. I'm just trying to understand how to position my buyer so the offer actually has a shot. I want to figure out how we can work together. My buyers are a good fit for the house. They really like it. We're trying to figure out the price, right? So instead of us being against each other, we're now collaborating. We're not battling, and it changes the tone of nearly every conversation. Number five, focus on the seller's situation. Price isn't always the deal driver. Often it's something like timing, relocation. They've got a home already under contract, frustration with the market. They need some certainty, maybe. Maybe certainty is worth more than the price. So many buyers, and you hear the marketing out there for get your cash offer. We've got a cash offer program. But why are they interested in a cash offer? Why would they be willing to sacrifice equity in a deal for a cash offer that closes quickly? It's certainty. People are willing to pay for certainty in some situations. Not every. So how do we ask questions like that? What matters most besides price? Is timing important here? When do they need to be out? Where are they going? What would make this feel like a win for them? And now we're getting down to the real variables that are actually going to drive this. Two parts in this. The agent's going to hear that, hey, he gets me. You're going to write an offer that is going to just be a little bit more attractive to that seller. When they see it, even if the price is there, they're going to be like, but that's really nice. And so we want to be able to position ourselves in a way that even if we come across a little low from where they need to be or where they want to be or where they expect to be, we're not offensive because we understand kind of where their floor is. Maybe we got that out of some of the initial questions. We're amending our offer to help fit their needs with other issues, timing, friction, move out flexibility, furniture. They want to leave all the furniture, whatever. Like we can make those things not an issue. We can take those issues off your plate. We can make your life significantly easier. So the best negotiators don't corner people into giving them information. They create conversations where people volunteer it. So that's what I'm asking that you focus on. You try to do. If you need to go through this again and listen to our 5 tips, I'm going to say them one more time. 1, ask about the temperature, the feelings, not the number. 2, Use observations to start the conversation. I've observed this is happening with this listing. It looks like they may be getting to the right price. What kind of looks like you're probably getting this kind of feedback, right? The home needs a lot of work. It looks like I'm sure you're looking for a buyer that's willing to do a lot of work here. Number 3, ask questions that make them think out loud. Number 4, acknowledge the awkwardness. Hey, I get we're talking and I get you represent them and you're trying to do as good as you can for them. I understand that and I respect that. I don't want to ask questions out of bounds. Number 5, focus on the seller's situation. Situation matters. And although sometimes with their situation, they may not know it, it may be beneficial to your buyer as well. So throw this as an example. The seller needs time, so that they can not have to have an in-between house and move into the other house that's being built, whatever the scenario. Your buyer may be in a lease and it's going to cost them if they got to move out sooner. So even though we're meeting the objections of a buyer or of the seller, it may be beneficial for the buyer, right? And so sometimes behind the scenes, we don't have to tell them that. We make this is a plus, right? You're getting to save money. We're dropping price. You're getting to save money because you don't have to move twice. You don't have to buy an in-between house, right? All the things. Or rent an in-between house. But yet it's mutually beneficial. So it's very possible that can happen. Now, I'm going to flip this real quickly, and I want you to think about this from the listing agent side. If you're on the seller side, remember, your job is to cooperate without giving away the playbook. So good responses may be a little just intentional, something like we're encouraging buyers to bring their strongest offer. I didn't tell you anything there. Now, if there's information I can give you that doesn't hurt our ability to negotiate, why wouldn't I do that? The sellers will just evaluate the full picture. They're flexible. Like I like my sellers. They got flexibility. We got options. You can bring me a cash over asking price offer. We'll be out tomorrow. Where do they have to go? I don't know. I'll figure it out because terms matter. Terms matter as much as price. And one thing I'll just, for our listing agents out there, we've got to understand that offer is far more than price. Offer is far more than price. The terms matter dramatically. We've got to actually internalize that and believe that. My job is not just to help get you the highest price, but to help to get you the highest price that will get to the closing table. A good offer can fall through, right? And so we've got to evaluate the whole picture. We need to also be asking open-ended questions, finding out more about the buyer. What are their true motivations? And I just say, the agents who win negotiations aren't the ones who push harder. They're the ones who learn more before the offer is written. And that conversation with other agents is where most of the intelligence comes from. Have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. Hope this is helpful to somebody.